Hello, everybody. It's me, Sports Talk Guy. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the NFL offseason outlook. The Super Bowl just ended, or we're already back in the NFL. Now we get into the fun of things. Things that we could talk about, things we could argue about. Why this will happen, why that won't happen. I'm ready. I always love watching the NFL offseason. Certainly my favorite of off seasons. But let's get right into it. So, what I'm going to be doing here in this episode is I'm going to I'm going to say each team's biggest needs in terms of free agency, not draft. I'll do a draft closer to draft date, and because I kind of want to do a first round mock draft, but that'll come later. So we're going to talk about free agent needs and possible trades that could happen. We already did talk about it a few episodes ago. That Kirk Cousins, Michael Vick, the Browns, and the Vikings, and we're going to revisit that a little bit in this episode. But in this episode, I'm going to run down each division and go through each team, their biggest needs, and what they need to become a playoff contender or even get to the next level and become a Super Bowl contender. So, we're going to start. We're going to go rotate between NFC and AFC, and we're going to start on the East Coast. So, we're going to be starting with the NFC East. The NFC East consists, all divisions consist of 4 teams, but the NFC East is the Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, and Redskins. So, I guess we'll start with these guys, because they are my favorite team. What do the Eagles need to become successful and get them to that jump from a very good 2013 that got them the division title to get them to the next step of becoming an NFC championship team or a Super Bowl championship to be the first in history, and boy would I be excited. So what do the Eagles need? The Eagles need better defense. That offense is not changing at all, but what they need to do is both Riley Cooper and Jeremy Maclin are free agents. You need to sign Riley Cooper to a 4-year deal, Jeremy Maclin to a 1-year deal. I think Riley Cooper definitely proved himself this year and that he has definitely good chemistry and a good connection with Nick Foles. And since Jeremy Maclin tore his ACL on his contract year, I think he deserves to get a shot. And I think now he'll be the slot guy on the team because he's very fast. Like, a lot of people don't know that about Jeremy Maclin. He's very fast. Not too much slower than Deshaun. But I like Riley Cooper because he's that big physical receiver you like. He's a good red zone target. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Eagles need to get Jarius Byrd, TJ Ward, or Dante Whitner. One of those 3 guys changes that whole defense. People look at the Eagles secondary and they say, that secondary is awful, it's pitiful. It's not as bad as you think. The corners played very well this year. Brandon Boykin had 6 picks, while Kerry Williams played excellent. And then, but you had, what's his name, Bradley Fletcher. He was a bit medium. But it was the safeties. So, there's some plays where the corner is supposed to let off his receiver and let the safeties just take them. And the safety play was very awful this year. I mean, Nate Allen stepped his game up in about the second half of the season. Patrick Chung didn't play like the Patrick Chung that he played as in the New England Patriots. That Patrick Chung with the New England Patriots loved to hit. He was very fast, and boy, he liked jumping routes. This Patrick Chung with the Eagles decides that he doesn't want anything to do with any of that, and he wants to play very bad. And then there was talks about Earl Wolf coming in for Patrick Chung, but Earl Wolf got hurt. He was the Eagles' 5th-round draft pick last year, and he's right now very much potential, and he could become something. But as of right now, if you want to do anything, you need to sign a top safety in the free agency. Whether it's free safety or strong safety, it doesn't matter. Now, in terms of what the Eagles need to get rid of, I'd say you cut James Casey, you cut Patrick Chung, you cut Kurt Coleman, and you cut Alex Henry, because the Eagles also need a new kicker, because Alex Henry proved that his leg is about as strong as mine. That is very weak. So that's what the Eagles, I think, need to make them get to that next level. Definitely getting improved safeties would help that team a lot, and to help in the long run. Also, it wouldn't hurt to reconstruct Trent Cole's contract if he'd be willing to, but that doesn't concern me as much. And the D-line has a lot of potential, and there's a lot of safeties and corners out there this year in the draft, which I'd like to see them get. Now, let's go on to the Dallas Cowboys, the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the team that I totally hate. So what I think the Cowboys need to do is they need to do almost the same thing as the Eagles. They need to focus on getting their safety game up, whether it's signing one of the 3 guys I named with the Eagles or going after maybe another player. That's what they need to do. They also need a bit of a stronger O-line. Their O-line was a little bit weak this year, but they did play good down the stretch. I noticed watching some of those Cowboys games, they definitely stepped their game up. And maybe a little bit you want to focus on the future. How many years left does Jason Witten have? Maybe you get a top tight end that's going in the second or third round. You groom him under Witten, so in 2 to 5 years, when Witten retires, this guy's ready to go. He's coming in, and he'll see some time. I mean, it's not like teams don't run 2 tight end sets from now here and there. And also, I think they need to cut Miles Austin. He's a waste of space. He's too old. He's not very good anymore. He's very injury prone. You have Dez Bryant, who's just, in my opinion, the third best receiver in the league. He's definitely enough to carry that team with what they have. And DeMarco Murray definitely impressed me as a running back this year. While I hate the Cowboys, DeMarco Murray definitely impressed me. He didn't originally make the Pro Bowl. He was a replacement, but I think he was better than Frank Gore. Frank Gore, I don't think, deserved it over him, but it doesn't matter because he made it anyways. So that's all we really look at for the Cowboys. Now the Giants. Holy shit, were the Giants a mess this year. Granted, they went 7-9. It was a very ugly 7-9. Eli Manning had a ton of thrown interceptions, and their running backs were awful. I don't see them coming back from this, and I think the Giants are a team that's going to be focused on. This year they're going to try to get right back in immediately, but I think they're going to have to start focusing on rebuilding. I don't think they're good enough to go further anymore. I think Eli's done. They're going to lose Hakeem Nicks, and that defense is just ugly. That defensive line that was so legendary 2 years ago went from second best front seven to probably second worst front seven. I mean, you still have Jason Pierre-Paul, but man, he looked lazy this year in my opinion. He didn't play his hardest in my opinion. I don't think he was out there hustling. I don't think he was doing what he did the last 2 years previous to this year. And what they need everything. I mean, they need a running back. They need an O-line. They need a secondary. Their front seven is recoverable. And maybe you get a guy opposing Jason Pierre-Paul, and maybe you get a linebacker or two in there. But they don't have the cap space to get all that they need. They need a lot of help. A lot. And personally, I think the Giants will be last place in the NFC East this year. And now on to the team that did get last place this year in the NFC East, the Washington Redskins. After the Redskins go 10-6, a high and mighty season, RG3 looks like a savior. They go very opposite. Or they were 4-12 or 5-11, one of the two. Either way, it was very bad. RG3 was hurt. In my opinion, RG3 should never have came back this year. He should have sat the year out. Should not have tried to come play. He definitely rushed the ACL, MCL comeback. And it wasn't good. And on top of that, after their NFC Championship year, they lost a lot of defense. That defense was solid when they won the division. They lost a lot of players, especially in the secondary. They need to rebuild their secondary. Their front seven is still good, but they're also losing London Fletcher this year, and they're probably losing Brian Orakpo to free agency. So there's two of the best linebackers in the game, and you lost them. So I think they're going to be bad on that side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball. I think their offense can recover a little bit. Maybe you get a decent receiver to second Pierre Garçon because Santana Moss is getting kind of old. And you still have the tight end game there with Fred Davis, even though he got hurt down the stretch. And their O-line isn't bad. Maybe you get a guy or two in there. So that's what I think the Redskins will do. I'm not going to really predict standings. I mean, if you want to really think what my standings will be, I think it'll be Eagles, Cowboys, Redskins, Giants. But I'm not going to pick records. So I guess I'll do that for each division. And man, I spent about almost 10 minutes on that. There's the rest of the NFL to go. The AFC East. The Patriots, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets. We'll start with the Patriots. The Patriots weren't as good as their record showed this year. They definitely were not nearly that good. A lot of teams could have beat them. They had a fairly easy schedule. I think they wouldn't have. In my opinion, 5 of the 6 teams in the NFC this year that were in the playoffs, other than the Packers, all 5 of those teams were better than all 6 of the teams in the AFC, in my opinion. I think everybody in the NFC other than the Packers could have beat everybody in the AFC. Especially the Patriots. The Patriots didn't impress me. They had a very easy road to that AFC Championship game. I mean, who they play? Was it the Colts? Yeah. The Colts were ugly in that first one. They didn't even deserve that win. But the Patriots, what really happened this year was their defense for the last how many years has been extremely overrated. And their defense, when it comes down to it, doesn't get the job done. And secondly, you lost Gronk, you lost Welker. Your best receiver this year was Julian Edelman. And Danny Amendola was hurt. So there you go. But next year, the Patriots, I think, will continue their dominance, especially if they make a few key moves. Personally, I think they should get Eric Decker. He definitely fits what Wes Welker fit there. And now you have you have Eric Decker, Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, and Gronk. That is a solid receiving core right there with the tight end. And I think Eric Decker could make a lot of changes in the Patriots. Granted, Tom Brady this year definitely, in my opinion, played way better than... He proved why he's a top 3 quarterback ever this year. This was the year that he really proved it, what he did with a lack of weapons. The run game did step up this year, though, so that's good for them. All 3 of their running backs ran very well, especially LeGarrette Blount down the stretch, and Stephen Ridley and Shane Vereen. Solid 3 running backs. Very good. And on the defensive side of the ball, you have Aqib Talib, who's arguably the 3rd best corner in the league, in my opinion. He's second behind Richard Sherman and Darrelle Revis. But he's also up for free agency, so the Patriots want to do anything. They definitely have to re-sign him. Although I wouldn't mind seeing him on the Eagles either. But he's definitely a must. And I think the Vince Wilfork injury hurt on the defensive side of the ball a little bit. He's one of the better D tackles in the league. But I think they should try to go after a defensive end to help Wilfork a little bit. Because he does a lot on that D line. But you get an end in there, maybe it opens even more things up for your pass rush. I think their secondary is alright. Maybe you get an extra safety in there. Because their corners are fine. I think the linebackers are fine. It's just the defensive ends and the safeties. And that's what the Patriots need to become successful for this year. On to the Buffalo Bills. The Bills had a very up and down year. They had times where they shined, and they had times where they looked really ugly. Again, the Buffalo Bills, one of the better running teams in the NFL with C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson, always impresses me. And they have wide receiver Stevie Johnson. So, again, more impressive. On the offensive side of the ball, they didn't really get to show, I guess, their full potential. I mean, they had a quarterback fiasco there. I mean, with injuries and guys like Thad Lewis starting. So it was bad there. But I definitely think on the offensive side of the ball, I think they're fine for the most part. I think they need a tight end, though. That would help their offense. And I get they like blocking tight ends because of how versatile their running backs are. But maybe the blocking tight end you already have, maybe you go after a receiving tight end, and then you start running 2 tight end sets. Because, I mean, you only have one really true good receiver on that team. Maybe you go after a receiver, too. Who knows? Maybe that's what you need instead of a tight end. The second receiver to Stevie Johnson. And on the defensive side of the ball, I think they're fine. But as of everything's going right now, they are not getting Jarius Byrd back. I think he's leaving. He wants to go on a winning team. Hopefully that team. But, again, if they re-sign him, that defense is strong. All that needs really is maybe a D tackle or a D end to take that defense to the next level. So that's where we stand with the Buffalo Bills. On to the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, again, were another shaky team. They just missed the playoffs barely. Finally, Ryan Tannehill wasn't as good as he was this year as he was his rookie year. He definitely had inconsistent play, and he had more weapons this year. You got Mike Wallace. What else could you ask for? Mike Wallace, Brian Hartline, solid. Your offensive line played very well, but I guess there was turmoil with the Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin thing, but who gives a fuck about that anymore? Anyways, you definitely found a running back with Lamar Miller. He's a keeper. He's going to be a good running back, in my opinion. I liked him a lot this year. It was his second year in the NFL, his first year being the starter. Impressed me a lot. And what they need to do, I guess, on the defensive side of the ball, well, I mean, really, what do they need to do? I mean, their defense was solid last year. I mean, you have solid corners, you have solid linebackers, you have solid D-line. I mean, I guess there's a few guys you want to sign out there that are top that'll take your team to the next level. I guess they could use a safety, because I like their corners, but their safeties could use a little bit of help. And I guess on the offensive side of the ball, maybe because I think Incognito will be back in the NFL, just not with the Dolphins. But you need to sign a guy to replace Incognito where he was on the line. I think he was left guard or right guard. So you need to replace that. And maybe it wouldn't... I mean, they have Charles Clay as their receiver. So, I mean, their tight end. Well, he's a solid tight end, but maybe they could use a blocking tight end. Who knows? And that's where I think the Dolphins stand. Now, the New York Jets. Holy crap, Geno Smith, you are the most inconsistent quarterback in NFL history. He literally went for the first 14 games of the season, or no, 12 games of the season. He went win-loss, 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 win-loss. And all those wins he looked great. All those losses he looked terrible. And all those wins he played like a top 7 quarterback. And all those losses he played like a bottom 3 quarterback. Very inconsistent. I don't know where Geno Smith stands right now. I mean, will we get next year the Geno Smith that shined or the Geno Smith that was awful? His interception numbers were high, but so were his touchdown numbers, and his passing yards weren't too bad. But then, also, what they need a true running back. I mean, you had Chris Ivory last year, and who was the other guy that came in the mix at the end there? I forget his name. It doesn't matter. You need a true running back on that offense, and a second receiver. If Santonio Holmes gets hurt again, you don't have a receiving core again. It's that simple. But you need to get a guy that could come in and take the number 1 spot, and you need a guy that could be a very good number 2 to Santonio Holmes. I think he'll be healthy this year. I mean, what happened to him was kind of, yeah. I saw it happen. It was ugly. And yeah, and on the defense side of the ball, once again, the Jets are strong on defense. Rex Ryan is a very good defensive-minded head coach. He sucks on the offense, very good on the defense. And when he's done being a head coach, which could be in the next year or two, he's definitely a good defensive coordinator for future coaches to look at as part of their, program or their organization. So with that in mind, I predict that it'll be Patriots, Dolphins, Jets, Bills in that division next year. As it was this year. I think this was the same. Either the Jets and the Dolphins tied or somebody had the tiebreaker over each other. Either way, it doesn't matter. On to the NFC North. The NFC North was consists of the Vikings, the Packers, the Bears, and the Lions. So, we'll start from top to bottom again. Vikings. I said a few episodes ago what I think the Vikings need. Kirk Cousins. But, there's more than just that to it. Kirk Cousins would help a lot, but there's another quarterback that I've liked that a lot of people and draft analysts haven't liked, and that's A.J. McCarron. Oops, let's fix my hair. Alright. A.J. McCarron this year, not even this year, a lot of people are saying he was never that good. It was always Alabama's defense that got him those 2-3 championships. But that's not always the case. I like A.J. McCarron because what has he always had? He's always had a running back and he's always had a defense. What do the Vikings got? They got the best running back, and their defense is definitely subpar, but if they bring it up, it'll help a lot. And A.J. McCarron's definitely a guy that controls the game. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's very smart with his decisions. He didn't get a lot of opportunities to pass the ball, certainly with the running backs they've always brought in, but he's smart, and he knows what he's doing. He knows how to keep the ball on the offense instead of turning it over. So, look, I like the Vikings getting Kirk Cousins because I said a few episodes ago, it leaves open draft picks. Then they could go after a first-round defensive player, like a very good safety, like a Clinton Dix or someone along those lines, because that's what they need. Their cornerbacks played, I guess, the best. Jared Allen, I'm pretty sure, is gone. Maybe he'll come back, and it depends what you do with Chad Greenway, if you trade him for Kirk Cousins or not. So, yeah. But definitely, I like the new head coaching change, phenomenal. One of the greater D coordinators in the league, and you make him a head coach. I love defensive-minded head coaches more than I do offensive-minded, even though this team's head coach is offensive-minded, and he definitely had a great year. But, yeah, definitely have my reasons for why I like more than others. Anyways, on to the Packers. The Packers won the division last year at 8-7-1. It was mostly because Aaron Rodgers was hurt. Eddie Lacy stepped up. They found their running back of the future. And for the long future, you have your quarterback and you have your receiving core. The offense is fine on that team. Maybe you could get help on the offensive line, but what you turn to is the defense. That defense is ugly. I mean, you have stars on that defense, but there's no chemistry. You have Clay Matthews and B.J. Raji, but that defense, even when Charles Woodson was there was no chemistry. They definitely need a corner, and they need to try to either get a very good defensive end or a guy opposing Clay Matthews on the linebacking core, so they could bring a rush from both sides, or they could do with the linemen, could bring a rush in from the same side. So that's what they need, and I think the Packers will be up there again, especially if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. That Aaron Rodgers is the total X factor of that team. When he's healthy, the team was good. If he was healthy, I think they probably would have ended up 10-6 probably. They probably would have managed to get a few extra wins out of that. Some games they shouldn't have lost. Anyways, now on to the Chicago Bears. The Bears. Well, the Bears started off great. Literally great. Alshon Jeffrey finally broke out as becoming one of the premier receivers with Brandon Marshall. Those guys are 1 and 2, and they're both top 10 receivers, and they're on the same team. Again, though, Jay Cutler, can he stay healthy? Josh McCown played very well, but it comes down to it. Do they need a quarterback, really? Maybe they need a quarterback. You don't know. How much time did Jay Cutler have left? Can he stay healthy this year? And then on the defensive side of the ball, that team turned around extremely. They went from a very strong defensive team to a very strong offensive team, especially with Matt Forte. I forgot to mention him. That defense now, well, simple. You need other than Lance Briggs, you need a linebacker that was like, what's his name? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Oh my God, why am I forgetting his name? He was their linebacker for 15 years. Oh, Brian Urlacher. Jesus, I would have hurt myself if I would have forgot his name. Brian Urlacher. It's not like you need a guy exactly like him because there's nobody that can replace him. But it wouldn't hurt to get him or a safety. I do like Peanut Tillman, though. He's a very good corner, but safety help always helps with corners. And maybe you just need a D lineman. Maybe that's what they're missing. Maybe a guy opposing Julius Peppers. Maybe that's what you need. They're a team that has stars on their team, but no chemistry on the defense side of the ball. They definitely messed up a lot of things. Those 3 guys put up big numbers, but it didn't translate into a team total defense, and it didn't help very much. Now on to the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions fired their head coach, Jim Schwartz, and finally brought in somebody new. It was about time. That was about 3 years in the making overdue. I think Jim Schwartz, in my opinion, was one of the most idiotic head coaches you could ever have. Well, here's the Lions' chance of redemption. You got Matt Stafford and Calvin Johnson. That offense is solid. You have Reggie Bush and Jaquay Bell as your running backs. 2 very solid running backs. Very good change of pace there. You have a power back and you have an all-purpose running back. Very good. On the defensive side of the ball, though, safeties. Most teams have their one or two very good corners. It's safeties, though. Safeties are becoming a rarity in the NFL. You have a good safety, that tends to translate. Safeties are leaders on the defense. I'm a fan of the strong safety. They like to hit guys. It's great. Safeties are great. And then, it's always the same thing. I guess what they need the most, in my opinion, is a linebacker. They have Durant, but if he's your best linebacker, you need a little bit more help. So that's what they need to do on the defense side of the ball. They were right there. They were so close. They had a lot of close games. They could have won a lot more. It just wasn't there. Jim Schwartz definitely made some dumb decisions as a head coach too. So personally, this is going to be one of the better. First off, let me go off by saying before we continue, the NFC North, the NFC West, and the AFC West are going to be very strong this year coming up. Very, very strong. Anyways, continuing what I think the standings will be. I think it'll be Packers, Bears, Vikings, Lions. The Lions are going to adjust to a new head coach in a different way than the Vikings will. The Packers will stay on top, and the Bears will be right there behind them. That division is going to be a stronger division next year, I promise you that. But certainly, any one of those teams can come out and just dominate. Sometimes all it takes is a quarterback with the Vikings. Sometimes all it takes is a new head coach with the Lions, a better defense with the Lions, a better defense with the Bears. Now on to the AFC North, and we're halfway through this at about the half-hour mark. Yeah. I'm getting hot. Let me take this off. I'm just going to take this off because it's not that hot in here, but I'm hot. I'm actually really hot. Whew. Alright, I feel better. I'm going to take off my moccasins too. And I'm going to lean back and relax. Alright. Anyways, on to the, what was I on? Oh, to the AFC North. Yep. The AFC North. The Browns, the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Steelers. We'll start with the Browns. We went over the Browns in the last video. What do they need? A quarterback. I think they are really a above average quarterback and an above average running back away from winning that division. That defense is so strong it can carry them through. I like guys like Johnny Manziel and I like guys like Mike Vick on that team. And them drafting a guy like Trey Mason or Andre Williams for running back is strong. That defense has no problems right now, especially if they re-sign TJ Ward. I see nothing wrong with that defense. And then now we'll go to the Ravens. Oh my God, the Ravens were a mess this year. I mean, Joe Flacco looked like the Joe Flacco that he really is. He's not an elite quarterback, let's be honest. He won the Super Bowl just because of that great defense he had. And they lost everything on that defense. Oh my God. Wait a minute. I feel like a few episodes ago, I was talking about the Broncos. I was talking about Elvis Dumervil still being on the Broncos, and now I feel like an idiot. I did. I definitely did. I said Elvis Dumervil's on the Ravens now. Oh boy, that's bad. That was on my Super Bowl prediction video. Anyways, let's talk about the Ravens. The Ravens lost basically their whole secondary other than Ladarius Webb. And he's a great corner, but everybody needs help at some point. Again, you still have Terrell Suggs, and they have Elvis Dumervil. Let's get that right. I was wrong about the Broncos. I don't know why I said that. I recorded that like not even an hour ago, too. So that's bad, even though it came out about 5 days ago. I recorded that about an hour ago. I record everything in sessions, as we've already noticed, but the Ravens need an established number 2 receiver under Torrey Smith and a stronger right side of their offensive line to go with, I guess, a better tight end. Even though Pitta wasn't that bad, I think you need a better tight end than him. Or Dennis Dixon, too. They don't impress me. And then again, safety. Safety's help. Anyways, on to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals won the division this year, and they really didn't look bad other than Andy Dalton's really inconsistent play. If Andy Dalton becomes more consistent, they're a better team all around. I think they found their running back of the future in Giovanni Bernard, and they have a great change of pace with Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, the law firm. And that defense is strong. I mean, there's nothing else to say about it. That defense is impressive, very impressive. Nothing to change on that team, on the defense side of the ball. But this year, even if, let's say, the Bengals would go 10-6 again, and they lose in the first round of the playoffs again, is it time for Andy Dalton to go? I mean, he went to the playoffs. That means, I think, what would it be? 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5 times so far in his career, but he's not winning. I mean, I guess Matt Ryan ran into the same problem. Then look at Matt Ryan this year. He fell apart. That whole team fell apart. We'll talk about that soon enough. But, I mean, the Bengals are this close. They really are. And now on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are becoming old. Ben Roethlisberger doesn't have much time left. And neither does a lot of guys on those defense, like Troy Polamalu. Even though, great safety. That's what you need, a safety. And you have Ike Taylor as a cornerback and guys like that, and Ryan Clark as the other safety. Their secondary is solid. They need a little bit of help on the D-line, though. I like their linebacking core. I've always liked that linebacking core. They are a 3-4, so linebackers are more important than D-linemen. But it's always good to have maybe an interior lineman or a defensive end on that team. That would help them a lot. Again, they were very close. Maybe you get a better number 2 wide receiver to go with Antonio Brown. That would help a lot. And a better running back. They didn't have much of a run game this year. Oh, well, never mind. They had Le'Veon Bell, so what am I saying? So, they found that running back. He'll do better next year. Ben Roethlisberger has to stay healthy, get a number 2 receiver, and maybe some D-line help, and the Steelers can be right back in that division. So, here we go. This is a bit of a bold prediction, but my division is, for this division, the Bengals, Browns, Steelers, and Ravens. That's what I'm going with. Anyways, on to the NFC South. The Saints, the Panthers, the Falcons, and the Buccaneers. We'll start with the Saints. The Saints finally put it together this year. Rob Ryan was the answer for that defense. Certainly turned it around. They got some key players in the previous free agency, and their defense was strong. On the offensive side of the ball, you had everything but a receiving core. Their receivers aren't good. When Marquise Colston's your best receiver, that's not a good receiving core. They need a receiver. I mean, granted, you have Jimmy Graham, who in my opinion, as of right now, is the best tight end in the NFL. And he definitely changes the game a lot. And It's good. What's good about having a very good receiving tight end like Gronk or Jimmy Graham is that they create matchup problems, and that's what helps that receiving core look good. But now if they would get a top receiver, say maybe Mike Evans, maybe they trade up a little bit, that Saints team would look dangerous. And maybe a running back would help too. I mean, Darren Sproles is a very good all-purpose back, mostly a receiving back, and then they have a change of pace in there with Mark Ingram. Definitely take the ball and just power through. So I don't see too many problems with the Saints next year. On to the Panthers. Wow, did the Panthers impress a lot of people last year? So they started off 1-4 and ended up 11-5 and won the division. How about that? That's quite a turnaround to make in the middle of a season. You didn't turn around from one season to the next. You turn around in the middle of it. That's very impressive. Cam Newton certainly has proven that, in my opinion, Cam Newton's a clutch quarterback, but he's not a good quarterback. In the clutch, he's good. But overall, I'm not a fan of Cam Newton, but he's definitely the quarterback for the team, and he's the franchise quarterback. And he's probably top 10, maybe top 15. But his numbers always aren't there for the passing game. He's also a great running quarterback. I mean, he's big and he's hard to take down. That's a very good running quarterback that you want. He can get out of a lot of tackles. And that offensive line is good, but he makes them look better. What they need, in my opinion, they need a solid running back on that offensive side and a number 2 receiver. I mean, D'Angelo Williams definitely had a bit of a comeback year, and Mike Tolbert is a good making from over the last few years, 2-3 years, from making the transition from running back to fullback. He's definitely becoming one of the league's better fullbacks, and the fullbacks have lost art a lot in this league. But they definitely need a number 2 receiver who will eventually become a number 1, because Steve Smith, while he's still good and he's still probably top 10, he's top 15 now, they need a guy who could be his number 2 for the next 2 years, and then a guy who that same guy could come in and be the number 1 then for the rest of his career, and hopefully in Carolina. On the defensive side of the ball, they were very good. Maybe you get an extra corner, maybe a slot corner or number 2 corner on that defense, but there's no problems. I mean, you have a solid linebacker in Luke Kuechly, Greg Hardy, and Star Lutelli were very good on that interior line and on the ends. So very solid. Their front seven's strong. They can use a little bit of help in the secondary, not so much as the safeties, but I think the corners a little bit, and that's where I think the Panthers will be. The Falcons. Holy shit, the Falcons ran into a mess. They went from division winning, what are they, the second seed of the playoffs, to rock bottom, literally. Except they weren't last of the division, but they were there. They were close. They had a lot of close games down the stretch. They definitely were looking to spoil, but that defense was awful. And I don't like Matt Ryan. I haven't been a fan of him. I don't think he gets the job done. I mean, he's the franchise quarterback. He's not going anywhere anytime soon, but he's not top 10 in my opinion. I don't like Matt Ryan. He's not clutch. He sometimes throws. He doesn't throw many interceptions, but the interceptions he makes are dumb mistakes. Excuse me, that's not good. I mean, they have Steven. I mean, their offense is fine, really, for the most part. I mean, maybe some O-line help. I like Steven Jackson, but can he stay healthy? And their wide receiver core is great. Roddy White and Julio Jones. But now they lost the best tight end in NFL history, even though he hasn't been the best as in the last few seasons. But in NFL history, they lost the best tight end, Tony Gonzalez. Now you got to find a new tight end. On top of that, you have to find a defense that was in shambles. You could literally fix every part of that defense. You could use maybe not linebacker, but definitely linemen in the secondary. That was straight up pitiful. Their linebackers were definitely the best part of that defense, and it wasn't a very good best part. So they need a lot of help. Now on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers had a kind of an up and down year. Greg Schiano, in my opinion, wasn't the guy. They brought in my opinion, who I thought the Eagles should have brought in last year, but they proved me wrong by bringing in Chip Kelly. They brought in Lovie Smith. I literally love Lovie Smith. I think he's one of the better coaches in the NFL, and he's certainly I think the Bucs will turn things around over the next 2 years. Although they do like Mike Glennon down there. I'm not a fan, but he did impress me a little bit. And then Doug Martin got hurt. He had a down year, but sophomore slump and all that. I think Doug Martin will go back to normal. And then they have Vincent Jackson and what's his name? Not Mike Wallace. Mike Williams as a receiving course. That's a very good one, too. They could use a tight end down there, and they could use a linebacking core down there. That's what they need. Granted, their D line, their secondary was very good this year. Maybe a safety, strong safety, free safety, but definitely you want to get them a tight end, and that could help. Now this year is the make or break year for Mike Glennon. Can he do it, and how will he do it? If he doesn't do it, then next year you go into the draft and look for a guy like Mariota. So, my standings for the NFC South next year: Saints, Panthers, Bucks, Falcons. That's how I think it'll go down. Anyways, on to the AFC South. The Colts, the Titans, the Texans, and the Jaguars. In my opinion, the worst division in football. There has to be a worst and there has to be a best. This happens to be the worst. So the Colts won the division this year at, I think they were 10-6 or 11-5. They had a lot of games that they beat some top teams. I mean, they beat the Broncos in there in the regular season, so very good for them. But they had a lot of games that they could have won. And there's just some team they shouldn't have lost to, and it was kind of bad. Well, Andrew Luck, in my opinion, is a future great quarterback. The decision making isn't there. I mean, it's not like he's not clutch, because I'm pretty sure that since he came into the league, he's number one in most games won in the fourth quarter / overtime. So it's not that the clutch factor isn't there, but there's just something about I guess it's the playoff factor more or less. He's not doing well in the playoffs, and his playoff clutch factor isn't there. Even on that that first playoff game, that comeback that was pretty good comeback. Excuse me. Now onto the Titans. The Titans had a stronger defense this year, and I liked them early on, but they kind of broke apart a little bit. Certainly a little bit of fumbling around with quarterbacks. It wasn't good. It's just tough to say with the Titans. I mean, they're so unpredictable. I mean, Chris Johnson had an up year this year. Certainly came back to playing like he normally is used to playing. But before that, he just wasn't playing that well. The defense stepped up this year. The corners were very good, and I like their D-line. They could definitely use safety and linebacker help to help that defense move a little bit. They're in the middle of the pack, but they could definitely get that little extra edge. I think the Titans can contend next year in that division with the Colts, but who knows? Now on to the biggest train wreck of the season, the Houston Texans. You go from division winning, or no, they're either wild card or division winning 10-6 Texans, and then they go to 2-14. With changing almost nothing at all. The only thing they changed is that they lost Connor Barwin and they got Ed Reed. That was the only thing that changed from that season to this season. And I guess what changed is Matt Schaub decided that he was going to be the worst quarterback in NFL history this year. I do like Case Keenum a lot. He impressed me a lot. I think they should keep him as quarterback, and they shouldn't draft a quarterback with their first pick. I think they should draft Jadeveon Clowney with their first pick. And then you have Watt and Clowney on your first line. Maybe the two most athletic defensive linemen in NFL history. They're insanely athletic, both of them. And I think they would work good together. I think this year you give Case Keenum the shot, and then hopefully Arian Foster stays healthy, and maybe you get a lineman or two, and then you get a safety. Again, safeties. Safeties are like the strongest part of a defense. You'll notice me talking a lot about safeties, but you really need a good safety. A lot of these top defenses, a lot of these top teams have a safety in there that's putting in the works. I mean, the Texans did get Ed Reed, but Ed Reed's too old. He's out of his prime. He's finally retiring. He ended up getting traded to the Jets. No, he got released and then signed by the Jets, which he actually ended up playing better with the Jets than he did with the Texans. The Texans could certainly be right back in it next year. It all depends on how Case Keenum plays, I think. And maybe they make a splash by getting a safety. Anyways, on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's not much to... I mean, the Jaguars... Really, they aren't as bad as they seem. I mean, they've been the worst team of the past 2 years, but this year they weren't the worst team in the league, finally. They got a fair amount of wins. And I guess what they need is a quarterback. They truly need a quarterback because you have a running back. You have Maurice Jones-Drew. You have receivers in Cecil Shorts and, what's his name? The guy that, Justin Blackmon. And then, their defense is strong. I mean, they have Jonathan Seiferin, that safety they drafted last year. Oh my God. Very good safety. Their corners are fine. I mean, you could use cornerback help, but the D-line and the linebackers with Paul Posluszny, very good. Their defense is certainly going to be the defense to look for the next few years. and getting a quarterback is what's going to put them over the top. Now, I think, what are they, they're either the third or the fifth pick? So it's going to be tough to get Teddy Bridgewater, Johnny Manziel, but he definitely helped both those teams out. Now on, oh wait, I didn't predict my standings, but I think my standings next year for B will be the Colts, the Titans, the Texans, and the Jaguars will be the division next year in the AFC South. On to the NFC West. In my opinion, the strongest division in football. The Seattle Seahawks, the San Francisco 49ers, the Arizona Cardinals, and the St. Louis Rams. All insanely strong defensive teams. Teams that also have a fair amount of strong offensive output. You have the Super Bowl champions. You have the runner-ups to them in the NFC second in the conference. You have the Cardinals, who were 10-6 and didn't make the playoffs. And then you have the Rams, who were 6-10, but they were without Sam Bradford for most of the year. Otherwise, they played very well. So we'll start with the Seahawks. The Seahawks don't have to change much. I explained a few videos ago in the Super Bowl video what they need to change. I mean, maybe getting another linebacker in there, an outside linebacker would help a lot. That's basically it. Malcolm Smith, certainly, during that playoff run, oh my God, he proved himself a lot. So I guess that also makes my comment a little null and void. But that offensive line play can be a bit stronger on the right side. Marshawn Lynch, Russell Wilson make that line look a lot better than what it is. Not so much as the left side, but the right side. The right side needs to become a little bit stronger. It's good when you're a right-handed quarterback and your right side's the weaker side because that's the side you see and that's not your blind side. So that's good. They'll be fine next year. The same with the 49ers. Not much to change. They're strong all around. You have two wide receivers that are very good. Again, not much. I mean, the 49ers, in my opinion, are the more complete team than the Seahawks. The difference is, I think Russell Wilson is just the better quarterback than Colin Kaepernick, and that's the difference right there. As of right now, though, in my opinion, the 49ers really don't have to change a thing. Easily the best linebacking core. Maybe you go after a defensive end to oppose one of the Smiths, who is Aldon Smith. Maybe to do that, that'll help a little bit. Or maybe you get a new defensive tackle because they lost Isaac Buaga to the Eagles, and then the Eagles traded him to the Patriots. So maybe that's what you need a little bit there with the 49ers, but they'll be fine. The Arizona Cardinals. It really comes down to Carson Palmer. Another strong defensive team. In my opinion, Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu made for probably the best corner safety combo in the league in terms of players. Oh, no, that's not true. I guess you had Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, and Richard Sherman. So second best. I'll go second best because I love Patrick Peterson, in my opinion. Top 5 corner. He might be number 2. Screw what I said about Terrell Revis earlier and Aqib Talib. I think Patrick Peterson's number 2. I forgot all about him. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Andre Ellington, in my opinion, is coming on as one of the better running backs. He will come on as a better running back in the league. But I think you also need to find a better number 2 for Larry Fitzgerald, he has plenty of time left. He's not that old. What does he have? Is Larry Fitzgerald 31 or 32 now? He probably has 5 years left, which is pretty good. And it's not like he's always the fastest guy, but his routes and his hands, oh my God, his hands are beautiful. If you could get him a number 2 that's a speed guy, definitely create matchup problems. Or tight end. They did it with Larry Fitzgerald only. Maybe you need a receiving tight end. So, there you go. And Carson Palmer, again, if you keep the turnover numbers down, they'll be right back there this year. Now, the St. Louis Rams. Wow. The Rams are going to be good in the next few years. Their defense is coming on. They could use some secondary help, but their front seven is very strong. Their front seven is actually really strong. And they found their running back in Zach Stacy. He turned it up in the second half of the season. It didn't matter much because Sam Bradford got hurt, but as we all know, Sam Bradford will be back. He's the starting quarterback. And this is the year that Sam Bradford makes or breaks. Even if they don't make the playoffs. Personally, I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to make my standings with the records for this one. The Seahawks, I think, personally, will end up 14-2. The 49ers, 13-3. The Cardinals, 12-4. And the Rams, 10-6. All those teams are going to really dominate this league. That is easily the toughest division. They went from the NFC worst to the NFC best. Yeah, see what I did there? Worst, west, best, west. A little bit of rhyming. That division turned it on. And it's a shame that all 4 of those teams aren't going to make it to the playoffs, because I'd like to see it. But as you know, it's all the division winners plus 2 wild cards, and sadly only 3 of those teams could make the playoffs from that division, but one of them will be left out. And now, finally, coming down to the end of this video, we're on our last division, 45 minutes in. I honestly didn't think it was going to be this long. I was proven wrong. The AFC West with the Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers, and Raiders. We explained a little bit what the Broncos need. The Broncos need a secondary. They definitely need a secondary and a better... I didn't talk about it. They need a better running game, in my opinion. No, Sean Moreno isn't that good. He didn't prove to me that he was that good. He didn't rack up yards. He had touchdowns, but it's not hard to get touchdowns when Peyton Manning gets you inside the 5 for most of your touchdowns. He didn't break off many huge runs. But, again, I like Monty Ball more, to be honest, and I think he'll be better in the future. But for now, I guess Moreno's the guy. They're not going to worry about it. But they definitely need to worry about their secondary. Champ Bailey's getting old. DRC, he almost retired. If they would have won the Super Bowl, I think he said he was going to retire, but he's not going to. And he's easily number 1 or 2 in speed in terms of corner. So he'll definitely be fine. So, and I do feel stupid for in that Super Bowl when he's saying Elvis Dumervil, then they need a lineman opposing Elvis Dumervil. I forgot they don't even have Elvis Dumervil anymore. So they need a defensive lineman at this point. The linebacking core is fine, especially with Von Miller, who might be he's top 3 best linebacker in the league right now, in my opinion. So they definitely need a defensive lineman. And now, the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they're the more complete team of this division. Their defense is strong, even though it kind of broke apart in the second half. Their defense that even last year, or not last year, but the year before that, where they were awful on offense, but the defense was wrong, they have the most big-name players on a single defense. They just lack a bit of chemistry. Hopefully Andy Reid can work that more together, and they'll even become stronger defensively. They're really missing... I mean, maybe you want to go after... I mean, their safeties are strong. Maybe you want a corner, and that's about it. And then on the offensive side of the ball, you need nothing. I mean, Alex Smith controls the game. He keeps the turnover numbers down. Jamal Charles is top 5 running back. And then you have Dwayne Bowe. Maybe you get a second receiver for Dwayne Bowe. That would help probably on the offensive side. Because Dwayne Bowe, I saw, he had a bit of a down year for being healthy. But I feel like he wasn't hard to cover him. And then they could use a better tight end, too, on the offensive side of the ball. But they'll be fine next year. Honestly, well, I'll get to it a little bit later. But now the Chargers. They turned it around a lot, too, this year. I was very happy with Mike McCoy his first year, bringing the Chargers to a 9-7 wild card season. Certainly better than last year. Phillip Rivers played like the elite quarterback he is. In my opinion, he's elite. He had it down 2 or 3 years, but before that and now, he's played elite. And now he's finally found a receiver in Keenan Allen, and now Denario Alexander will come back next season, and he'll be healthy. And now they have a very, very good 1-2 with Denario Alexander and Keenan Allen. They have a very solid running back core. Ryan Matthews and Danny Woodhead. That's a perfect combo. You have Ryan Matthews, the runner, and you have Danny Woodhead, the receiving back, who's very good on third downs, and he makes plays. He's a very elusive, short, white guy for a running back. Not too many white running backs anymore, but Danny Woodhead I like a lot. Proved a lot to me this year. Now, the defense is the problem on that team. They could use a lot. You do have, what's his name, Eric Weddle, who's one of the top 5 safeties in the league right now. And again, safety play, he was the leader of that defense, and he kept them in a lot of games with his great defensive play. But they could definitely use a corner and probably a defensive end. Their linebacking core is pretty solid this year, I'll give them that. And so are their safeties, but a corner and a D end would help a lot. And now the Raiders. The Raiders, in my opinion, will be the worst team in the NFL next year. They don't have much hope, let's be honest. The Raiders can't find a quarterback. Darren McFadden might even leave this year, and he's one of the better running backs in the league, but he's had trouble staying healthy. That offensive line is weak. The defense is fairly weak, I guess, other than the linebackers. Linebackers aren't too bad, but everything else is weak. There's not much to help get the Raiders back on track. They need a quarterback, though, and that's what comes first. And I guess they're going to probably, maybe not draft one this year. I guess their only hope is trading up, or they're going to have to wait till next year. So, what I predict for the AFC West next year is it'll be Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders. Yeah, the Broncos go from Super Bowl to 3rd. We'll see, though. That AFC West could also produce another 2 wild cards this year. But who knows? Who knows? So, after almost 15 minutes of literally running down each team and explaining what I think can help them or break them. I'm tired. So, I'll see you guys in the next episode that I do. Thank you guys so much for watching. The longest video yet on this channel. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.